Elena Mero sat on the cold steps of the villa, her wedding dress pooling around her like a fallen cloud, her fingers pressed into her temples as if she could push the pain back inside her skull. Her veil lay abandoned beside her, torn where she'd ripped it free moments earlier. Tears fell silently, soaking into lace that had taken months to design and only seconds to ruin. She could still smell the flowers, white roses, peonies, lilies. They were everywhere, too many. They mocked her now. Behind her, no one moved. Ahead of her, he walked away. Julian Cross didn't look back. The plane waited for him on the circular drive, white and sleek, its door open like a mouth ready to swallow him whole. And somewhere in the middle of all that silence, a single moment shattered the lives of everyone present. 3 months earlier, Elena had believed in forever. She had believed that love, when chosen carefully, could be stable, predictable, safe. Julian Cross was the safest choice He was successful, composed, admired. A man who didn't raise his voice or make promises he couldn't keep. He wore his wealth lightly, custom suits without logos, a quiet confidence that made people listen when he spoke. They had met at a charity gala in Geneva, 2 polite smiles across a marble table. Elena had been representing her family's foundation. Julian had been donating a 7-figure check without blinking. Their conversation had been easy. Too easy, that should have been the warning. Within a year, he proposed. Within another, they planned a wedding that felt less like a celebration and more like an international event. Julian's family wanted elegance. Elena's family wanted tradition. Between them, money erased all disagreement. The villa in Tuscany was booked. The guest list was curated. The press was quietly kept away. Everything was perfect, except the parts that weren't. Clara Holloway stood with her hands clasped tightly in front of her chest, the pink fabric of her dress wrinkled from how hard she'd been gripping it. She wasn't supposed to be here. She had told herself that repeatedly as she watched Elena descend the steps earlier that afternoon, radiant and trembling with joy. Clara had nearly turned around and left then. Nearly. But she stayed, because some truths rot when buried. Clara had known Julian long before Elena ever did. She had known him when he laughed more, when his eyes softened instead of calculating, when he dreamed out loud instead of speaking in contracts and timelines. She had known him when he was still capable of choosing love, and she had loved him anyway, even after he chose something else. Julian and Clara had met 7 years earlier, both new hires at the same investment firm in London. They'd been equals then. Late nights turned into shared dinners. Shared dinners turned into quiet walks home. Quiet walks turned into something neither of them had planned but both of them needed. Julian was brilliant but restless. Clara was steady but passionate. Together they balanced each other in a way that felt rare. But love wasn't Julian's primary ambition. Power was. His rise was fast, promotions stacked, opportunities widened, and somewhere along the way, Clara stopped fitting into the future he envisioned. She wasn't from the right family. She didn't move in the right circles. She asked questions instead of applauding. The day he told her he was leaving, he had done it gently, kindly. "I want more," he said. She didn't ask what that meant. She already knew. Clara tried to move on. She really did. She changed cities, changed jobs, changed her hair. But some loves don't dissolve. They wait. And then 6 months before Julian's wedding, he found her again. It was an accident, he said. A coincidence. He was wrong. They talked. They remembered. They crossed a line neither of them pretended not to see. What started as closure became something else entirely. And then Clara realized the truth. She was pregnant. When she told Julian, his face didn't break. It hardened. He asked for time. Time was the one thing she didn't have. Elena had sensed something was wrong long before the wedding day. Julian had grown distant, preoccupied. He took calls outside. He traveled more. When she asked, he reassured her with practiced calm. "Stress," he said. "Pressure," he said. "It will pass." She wanted to believe him, because believing him meant she wouldn't have to start over. Because believing him meant her parents wouldn't look at her with disappointment. Because believing him meant the future she had chosen wouldn't unravel. So she ignored the quiet unease curling in her stomach. She mistook silence for peace. The ceremony was moments away when Clara finally stepped forward. She hadn't planned it this way. She hadn't wanted an audience, but truth rarely arrives politely. She asked Julian for a moment alone. He followed her, irritation flickering behind his composure. She told him everything, about the baby, about the lie, about how she couldn't carry the weight of his secret anymore. Julian didn't shout. He didn't beg. He made a decision. He walked away from her and straight into the open air, where Elena stood waiting. Elena saw Julian approach and smiled. Then she saw his face. He didn't speak immediately. He looked at the guests, the officiant, the setting sun. Then he told her, not gently, not slowly. He told her the truth because lies were no longer efficient. By the time he finished, Elena couldn't hear anything else. The world narrowed to the sound of her own breathing. She didn't scream. She sat down, and something inside her shattered beyond repair. Julian made his choice quickly. He always did. The wedding was canceled. The guests were dismissed. The press would be managed. He would leave. He turned and walked toward the jet, waiting to carry him back to a life he could still salvage. Behind him, Elena folded into herself on the stone steps, sobbing silently. Clara watched, guilt and relief colliding in her chest. No one tried to stop him. Sometimes the most powerful moments aren't loud. They're still, frozen, captured forever in a single image where love ends, truth arrives, and the cost of ambition becomes undeniable. That photograph would circulate later online. Speculation, theories, judgments, but no one would ever truly understand what it felt like to be there, to stand in the aftermath, to realize that forever is fragile, and that sometimes the hardest part of love isn't losing it, it's choosing what to do once it's gone.